Trains UK news, bringing hope to the free people of Britain and Europe. We turn our attention to the valiant work of our nation in the ongoing war effort. Amidst the trials of conflict, Britain's railways, the arteries of our nation, pulse with unyielding resolve. Through these veins flowed the lifeblood of the Allied war effort. Yet, as the wheels of industry turn, the strains of wartime exertion are beginning to take their toll. Railway equipment and locomotives now show signs of wear and fatigue under the burden of unprecedented demand. Thankfully, our American allies have aided us in our time of need, delivering an impressive new fleet of strong, durable locomotives. The powerful Class S160. Seen arriving on our shores, it wasn't long before these magnificent machines were shown off to the public, as seen here at London's Paddington Station. With the festivities over, it's back to work for Britain's newfound workhorse. Proving itself to be a roaring success the length and breadth of the nation, its power is only matched by its noise. You can do your part and take control of a magnificent S160 by enlisting today. Be sure to read your latest Rapido Trains UK communication to find out more.
We are pleased to announce that the OO Gauge USATC S160 is now available to pre-order. So, with a boatload of Yanks soon to be shipped over here, we thought we would take a look at what makes this imported locomotive such an important part of British railway history, what happened to them during and after the war, and how you can integrate this globe-trotting giant into your British-based collections. Due to years of consistent bombing and abuse, the railways of Great Britain were struggling to cope with the increased wartime traffic, and locomotives and rolling stock were in short supply. Thankfully, our American allies stepped up, aiding us in our hour of need. They reinforced the UK with a multitude of supplies, including a fleet of one of the most American-looking engines to run on Britain's railways, the spectacular 280 powerhouse that has become known to us as the S160. Designed by Major J.W. Marsh, this all-American loco had to fit the more restrictive loading gauge of the UK. They had to be easy to build, quick to repair, and reliable. Taking inspiration from locos such as the earlier S200 and the WD Austerity 280, the S160 lacked the finesse of the majority of British locomotives that it would work alongside. However, other than a few teething problems and operational challenges, it met its brief perfectly. Constructed in the United States in multiple batches between 1942 and 1945, the S160s were split between three manufacturers, Ulco, Baldwin and Longmoor. But, due to the combination of their American designer and builders, the evolving railway technology of the time, and the necessities of war, with their long service life after the cessation of hostilities, these locos sport some rather interesting differences from your average British chuffer. On closer examination of the model, you will notice that they feature an air pump, a sandbox on top of the boiler, bar frames, a steam turret above the firebox, a rather unconventional non-central smokebox door, and finally, ashpan blackout covers on the wartime editions that reduce the chances of the locos being spotted by enemy aircraft while running at night. All models also include two speakers fitted as standard on both DCC sound-fitted and DCC-ready versions, one in the loco's smokebox and another in the tender, to help produce a much greater depth of sound, perfect for those big bassy chugs and distinctive chime whistle sounds. DCC sound-fitted models are fitted with a 21-pin Lock Sound 5 decoder. Even with cries of "get that light out" from the local warden, locos still needed to be stoked, and with the amount of heavy freight traffic at the time, it was pretty much continuous on some journeys. So we have added dual LEDs to the firebox to offer a more realistic firebox flicker effect. Collectively, almost 800 locomotives were shipped to the UK. All of the locos passed through major British workshops before being sent out to their respective railway companies. The first 396 that were sent were split amongst the big four. 174 were issued to the GWR, 168 to the LNER, 50 to the LMS, and a more modest 6 to the Southern. Of the 10 different S160s we are making, you'll be able to choose from 4 wartime versions, one from each of the big four companies. As you can see, all 4 wartime locos feature slightly different liveries, and despite running on British tracks for several years, they still have big and bold USA lettering emblazoned on the tender, a stark reminder of exactly who was helping to keep the railways running. The UK-based versions we are making have some subtle but notable differences, so let's look at them in detail. All 4 versions feature a straight running board, a standard wartime tender, boiler-mounted ejector pipe, a Westinghouse air pump, and a right-hand drive with pole reversers and original pattern firehole door. GWR and LMS models have this pipe mounted behind the chimney, whereas the Southern and LNER versions have this pipe mounted in front of the chimney. Finally, there are variations on the smokebox front. with the addition of GWR pattern lampirons for 1604. Decorated in a sleek black livery, number 1604 is probably the most famous wartime S160, as it had the honour of being the first of its kind to be displayed publicly. It was taken to Paddington Station on the 11th of December 1942, where it was formally handed over to the Minister of War Transport, Lord Leathers, by the US Army's Chief of Transportation, Colonel N.A. Ryan. The remaining 400 UK-issued locos were stored in South Wales, where they were subsequently joined by the majority of their Big Four counterparts. All of these locos were then kept as part of the D-Day preparations. With the invasion on the horizon, June 1944 saw these stored engines sent for servicing and processing, with all having left the UK by early September 1944. One unusual feature of this class was the forward-facing door on the fireman's side of the cab. In one instance, this came in especially useful. A driver of a goods train heading for Didcot found he was unable to close the regulator. With the train picking up speed and in danger of becoming a runaway, the fireman climbed out of the cab, around the front of the engine, and pushed on the reversing lever while the driver pulled from his side. After what he described as a hectic few minutes, they managed to get the loco back into mid-gear and slow down again. You might be wondering if you need to buy lots of military rolling stock that are carrying tanks and artillery to go with the S160. The answer is no, not really, as S160s in the UK were used on a variety of normal services, so any Big Four era good stock works perfectly. Here is an S160 pulling a mixed rake of wagons. The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that what just trundled past was none other than the private owner 7-plank, LMS diagram 1666, and SR 8-plank wagons that were previously released by Rapido. Between 1942 and 1945, a whopping 2,120 S160s were built by our American friends. The remaining locomotives, along with those stored and gathered in the UK, were shipped to mainland Europe and further afield. Of course, many locos survived the war and into preservation, so let's have a look at some of the S160s we're making that you might be a bit more familiar with. Since the cessation of hostilities and until the days of preservation, the only S160 seen in the UK was WD 93257, Major General Carl R. Gray Jr. Interestingly, the engine was sent from America directly as part of a trade for a British loco that was to be used on the Fort Eustis Railway, the American equivalent of the Longmoor Military Railway. The loco was later renumbered WD 700 and used to train military personnel in driving and caring for steam locomotives at the famous LNER. The Rapido model of Longmoor 700 is one of the more colourful renditions of the loco, painted in the delightful Longmoor blue and finished with red lining and a stylish Major General Carl R. Gray Jr. nameplate. It shares similar fittings and features to the wartime variants. Following World War II, the S160s were scattered all across the globe. In their new ownership, they were often modified to accommodate their owners' needs. As time went on, the original shape and details of many of the locos would evolve, which was in part due to the interchangeable nature of their original design. 8 locos have since been repatriated to the UK and are in preservation. All of them are different from their counterparts, some more subtly than others. Several of the preserved versions have been returned to running order, with no less than 3 examples currently in operation and a number of others under restoration. Our tooling suite has been designed to produce as many of the much requested preserved versions as possible, although we have had to make some compromises. S160 number 5820, better known as Big Jim, is hugely popular on the Heritage Railway circuit, and we will be producing 2 striking versions of this compelling crowd pleaser. Upon its return to the UK from Poland, Big Jim entered service at the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway. When the engine was used in the feature film Yanks, it was repainted in Transportation Corps grey with the number 5820. Like many preserved S160s, Big Jim is an amalgamation of parts from several different locos and features a right-hand drive setup with screw reverser and stepped running board as seen on the later Lima builds, as well as a tender modified with lockers in the coal space. As with fellow ex-Polish loco Omaha, Jim has additional rear walls in the cab and also an ejector on the right-hand side of the smokebox with a PKP air pump and alternate piston valve covers. For a short period after its overhaul in 2014, Big Jim briefly appeared carrying a pseudo-BR livery. The engine was numbered 95820, an 8F power classification added on the cab side, an early BR emblem. Whilst only carried for a few weeks, the What If livery attracted a lot of attention. We thought we could add this fun livery to the range. be fair to say that the Churnet Valley Railway is the current British hub of S160 preservation, with 2 of its current locomotives featuring on our list of models. Locos numbered 6046 and 5197 call the railway home, and can be regularly seen blasting their way across the Staffordshire countryside. Much like their preservation counterpart Big Jim, the 2 Churnet Valley locos have standard lamp irons, a straight strap smokebox door, cab rear shutters fitted, as well as modified piston valve covers. Both locos feature straight running boards, front running plate mounted sandboxes, a tender with lockers and extra air tanks, and an ejector fitted to the left-hand side of the smokebox instead of the right. Both are also modelled as left-hand drive locos, with screw reversers and an Ajax pattern firehole door. We appreciate that in its current state, 5197 should have a power reverser on its left-hand side from its days working in China. However, to replicate this modification would have been a significant cost increase, so it's been omitted from the model. Last but by no means least, we have the brightest S160 running in the UK, number 2253 Omaha. This pretty preserved example is something of a nomad, residing at a variety of railways across the UK since it returned here in the early 90s. Omaha is our second model to feature the stepped running board, and is painted in a classy maroon livery with Transportation Corps U.S.A. boldly displayed on the tender. So as you can see, everything truly is bigger, and in this case better, in America. Well, actually in the UK, but from America. Order books are now open for the OO Gauge USATC S160, and all 10 liveries are available in DCC sound-fitted and DCC ready versions. You can pre-order your S160 by going directly to our website or through any of our official stockists. Are you prepared to do your part? Pre-order today and help us win the war!